What's up, everyone? It is officially Halloween. So, that means it's time for another episode of the Leaf Podcast. In this episode of the podcast, it's going to be a little different than usual. I'm not going to go over a bunch of things, I just have one thing, and that is a story, or many stories, that were sent in by Mutant Buzzard. Mutant Buzzard has sent in many stories to the channel. Uncle Monkey's Wendigo was one. There were many other ones, and of course the stories of the Hog Man and the stories of the gentleman farmer, Pablo. So this is a collection of stories about a man named DJ. So, definitely pull up a stump with me and let's get into it. And I hope I can do your stories justice. Thank you for watching. Back in my outlaw days, I had this pinche loco amigo we would call DJ, because that was his name. I wish I could tell you that this is a no bull story, but I can't, because there's actually a bull in this story. Lots of them. DJ claimed that DJ was short for dangerous. Then, when you inevitably point out that dangerous was spelled with a G, so there's no way that DJ could be short for dangerous, DJ would point out that you could if you spelled dangerous with a J. Pablo, the Pablo, said that DJ stood for something else. DJ was a very entertaining vato. DJ was a Texican, as he preferred to be called. DJ sounded Texan, but he looked like your very average, slightly pudgy Mexican. DJ made lots of pretty wild claims, but always seemed to be able to back his bull up. He was a regular fountain of obscure history, particularly Texas history. DJ said that the story of Santana Anna killing everyone in the Alamo was pure BS. He claimed to have ancestors that fought on both sides of the Texas War of Independence. Supposedly there was a bunch of women in the Alamo. One was an Irish Catholic woman that married a Mexican officer, and that they were DJ's great-great-grandparents, and that his great-great-grandma, the Irish Catholic woman, wound up with Jim Bowie's Bowie knife. She probably stole it off of Bowie's warm dead body, according to Pablo, and DJ disagreed, claiming that it was a gift, implying that his great-great-grandma was romantically involved with Bowie. DJ showed me the knife one time. It was obviously old, the wooden handle cracked with age, the brass spotted with green corrosion, and the clipped point blade pitted with rust about 20 or so inches of steel with a brass guard, rivets, and a pommel. And most relevant to this narrative, DJ was one of those rare individuals with incredibly high pain tolerance, as in, he didn't feel pain. And because of this, DJ was basically fearless because if nothing can hurt you, then nothing scares you, and he was always grinning because he didn't feel pain. I met DJ when we were working in the oil patch near Odessa, Texas. We were getting Paraderm in addition to our regular wages, and we were flush with cash, having just gotten paid, so we went to Hooters for beer and wings. After we got done and drinking our fill, we were buzzed and having a good time and waiting for our ride back to the hotel. And while we were waiting, there was this hooker that showed up. Her and DJ started dickering for her services, when the cops rolled up and pinched the three of us for solicitation, whatever the hell that means. The cops told us that she was a known prostitute, but that after we were booked, we would be released on our own recognizance. At the cop shop, there were already two guys. They were both Mexican by the look of them, and they were shackled to the metal bar that ran the length of one wall sitting on a bench that also ran the length of the same wall where we joined them. There was just one cop trying to do paperwork on an old pre-computer word processor electric typewriter gizmo. He was having a hard time, and he was way behind when DJ started giving him shit. So finally the cop up and started yelling at DJ to shut up or he wasn't like what was going to happen. DJ turned and said to the cop, "You better get out of my face or you're not gonna like what's gonna happen." To which the cop replied, getting really in DJ's face, their noses mere nanometers apart, "I'm in your face. What are you gonna do?" DJ kissed him, and the cop broke his nose. DJ would always give a sucker an even break. There sat DJ, blood streaming down his chest, with that shit-eating grin on his face he always seemed to be wearing, almost laughing. DJ declared, "You done effed up, pendejo." And then he yanked the shackle so hard that the chain snapped and sent the cop scurrying back like a rat in the scurry hurry. DJ went to the head and returned with a wad of paper towels to sop up the blood and sat back down on the bench. A few minutes later, the sergeant came out from the back with manila envelopes that the cops put our wallets and stuff into. The cop, sergeant, and DJ sized each other up like they knew each other, not personally, but more like they recognized the type. And while each was confident that they could take the other, they each knew that it wasn't going to be easy, and a lot of damage was going to ensue if they had to tangle. The sergeant then kicked the two other guys loose. DJ glared at them. One crossed himself, and the other just said "Gracias, senor" to the cop. Or maybe even DJ. It was unclear. Next, he kicked the girl loose, and DJ gave her a "you owe me" wink. The cop gave me my stuff back, and I was also free to go with no charges filed. Outside, the other guys were long gone, but the girl was still there. Her name was Connie, and she had nowhere to go, and no way to get there, so we waited 5 minutes or so until DJ was sprung. DJ still had the broken shackle locked on his wrist, a suspicious bulge under his shirt, and that huge, shit-eating grin on his face, like he had just won the lottery. I was glad to see him, but it was getting light, and the oil field work crew would be in the hotel parking lot for the mandated morning safety meeting, so I was worried about getting fired if we didn't show up for work. Just then, the cop that punched DJ rolled up and gave us a ride back to the hotel, just before the crew took off for the field. DJ went and talked to the foreman and showed him something. The foreman shuffled the crew around and left DJ and me a truck, and then the crew headed to the field to dig holes and weld pipe. DJ told me to wait in the truck while he and Connie had concluded their transaction back at the hotel. 16 minutes later, DJ jumped into the truck and told me what happened between him and the sergeant. According to DJ, the cop led him into the evidence locker, and DJ helped himself to a nice stainless steel 1911 .45 ACP pistol and about half a kilo of cocaine as recompense for the cop breaking DJ's nose. At the job site, DJ had one of the welders weld the broken shackle so that it couldn't be unlocked from his wrist, and he had the thumb safety on his new gun welded into the fire position because he didn't trust the thumb safety. DJ also had the welder run a bead over the serial number and replace it with DJ's initials, DJ. Ever after that, he carried the pistol with a round chambered, the hammer cocked, trusting the grip safety that DJ carried on his right rear hip because that's where John Wayne, who he also claimed to be related to by marriage, carried his pistol in the westerns. The reason John Wayne carried it there was because it was the best and most comfortable there when riding horses and motorcycles. If you had a negligent discharge, it would hit you in the butt or the leg, rather than your huevos. Needless to say, DJ was generous with the drugs, and we finished that job lickety-split. We got big bonuses too for completing the job ahead of schedule. The only other thing that DJ said about the drugs was that some lucky SOB named Bush just got his case dismissed for lack of evidence. After that job, one night DJ and I had closed down the last open watering hole where DJ met someone that he told me was his CIA contact, but looked to me anyway like just another hooker. DJ asked me if I wanted to help him do something sketchy, and all I had to do was drive. Being around DJ was always exciting and entertaining, and I was a bit of an adrenaline junkie back in the day. I had gotten hooked on the stuff when I did my first solo parachute jump at age 16. I would have jumped every day if I could, but plane rides are expensive, so I readily agreed for the adrenaline and the entertainment. We hopped on our bikes, both Hondas, CB900s with a 5-speed transmission, with a high-low range for about a total of 10 gears. It was the predecessor of the Goldwing, and had an AM/FM radio in the fairing. I rode a Honda because I couldn't afford a Harley. The oil and maintenance alone on a Harley would bankrupt any honest outlaw. DJ drove a Honda because it was quiet and drew less attention from the fuzz. We wore full-face motorcycle helmets. First we hit the gas station. DJ loaded us up with as much gas as we could carry on our rides, 2 5-gallon gas cans, one in each saddlebag, and then 2 more 2.5-gallon cans, one each strapped to the sides of our bikes. We rode northwest down the road that is closest to the Rio Grande, where the river, Texas, Mexico, and New Mexico all meet, and the road kind of doubles back. There was a pullout where we arrived in time to wait for sunrise. It was already warm, as DJ told me to turn on my radio and tune to a particular Mexican radio station frequency, and I had to leave it on that station and save it in my radio station buttons as the sun broke the horizon. There was a locked gate to an oil field where several still oil pump jacks and oil tanks that I couldn't see before the sun actually started to appear above the horizon. The gate was a very official-looking sign that said, "Adios, Texas, Benviendios DJ Nation," on the Texas side, and "Adios, DJ Nation, Benviendios, Texas." The gate was locked with a combination lock, and DJ unlocked it and told me the combination, 1911-45. We went through the gate, then we carefully rode our Hondas down a rocky, dry wash that went under the road until we came to an irrigation ditch levee. I followed DJ down the levee a little way until we got to where there was a narrow footbridge made out of logs and 2x12s by a rusty irrigation water gate that was opened and closed by turning a metal valve wheel that also had been locked by another combination lock. This combination was the same, and beyond that was the Rio Grande. DJ opened the water gate so that water went flooding down the ditch, pulling enough water out of the river to lower it enough that we would ride across it in about 2 to 4 inches of water. It helped that there was a drought and that it was almost autumn, so the river was already low, barely even a river at all. Not that there was any kind of water in it anyway. I think the name Rio Grande is a joke name, as it means big river, but it's always barely been a river at all late in the fall during a drought. That allowed us to ford, and we crossed into either New Mexico or Old Mexico proper. I'm not exactly sure. Then we went down an old cow path until we came to an abandoned road that ran more or less parallel to the border. That old road was mostly gravel, with some pothole-filled blacktop now and again. We took the road west until we came to a cut that headed into the rough border country, but DJ knew where he was going, to the top of the hill where we hid our bikes. DJ insisted that they be hidden separately, about a quarter mile or so apart, facing downhill, ready for a quick escape. But not be it for DJ was satisfied with no one watching us. After we topped off our bikes as gas tanks from one of the gas cans, DJ used the tie-down straps to fashion a system to carry 3 of the 5-gallon and 1 of the 2.5-gallon gas cans on his back. DJ picked up the last 5-gallon can in his left hand and the other 2.5-gallon can in his right and said, "Vamos," and headed down the hill. DJ has done this before. I offered to carry some of the gas, but DJ insisted. I meant it when I said all you have to do is drive. "Well," I bitched, "I ain't driving now. I'm walking, ain't I?" DJ laughed and insisted we bring our helmets, as we're probably going to need them. I finally got him to let me carry 1 of the 2.5-gallon cans, by saying you should let me carry the small can, in case you need to get to your gun. DJ saw the logic in this and gave me the can to carry, along with our helmets, and it was a good thing I did too, as there was a rattlesnake that tried to bite him as we hiked to our next goal. But DJ was fast on the draw. He shucked his smoke wagon as fast as lightning, but didn't shoot the snake. Instead, he just whacked it with the stainless .45, sending it spinning through the air to land in a scrub. "Sorry about that, Senor Snake," DJ said, "but I ain't got time to F around with you right now, and I'm low on ammo." We were always low on ammo. There's no such thing as too much ammo. There's only too much ammo to carry. It was a hot AF hike. It seemed to me that the temperature went up by at least 5 degrees when we crossed the border, but I was young then and handled it well enough. DJ just powered through like he always did. We went maybe 5 more miles, all downhill, and we made it without stopping, only slowing when forced to do so by the terrain. But the last mile was through a mesquite thicket, a thick thicket. The thicket was literally crawling with spiders, snakes, scorpions, and the rarest desert reptile of all, Gila monsters. Now, I've spent lots of time in the desert in California, Arizona, New Mexico, Old Mexico, and Texas. Never once have I saw a Gila monster until then. I saw at least a dozen of the little bastards. I never saw one before or since then. DJ said to make sure that I stay right behind him, something about booby traps, like I was going to wander off into a thorny thicket full of venomous critters anyway. I got way too much respect for them for that. The other thing about the thicket that stands out in my memory is the smell of rotten eggs. How DJ found the abandoned farm in that mess was pretty impressive. DJ blamed it on his military training. He had been in the Marine Corps, but I was kind of lost. This was unusual for me, as I generally have a pretty good sense of direction. I mean, I knew where I was generally, but exactly was another matter. I blamed it on the fact that I had been concentrating on driving my luxury street bike down a cow path. Anyway, we came to this old abandoned place with an old stone stock tank, built up around an artisan well that bubbled up with sulfur dioxide and methane. The pool was covered with thick algae that grew in the, quote, firewater that DJ called it, because you could light it on fire. That was how DJ could always find this place, by the smell of the well and the foul-smelling poison gas that bubbled out of the water. The gas came from the Permian Basin oil field. DJ cleared the clumps of algae from the stone water tank and covered the artisan well with a big upside-down funnel that collected the natural gas that powered DJ Landia. The funnel had a flexible metal hose that ran to a collapsed barn. Once the system was pressured up, it powered stuff that ran on either propane or natural gas. DJ had a generator, gas-mantled lanterns for light, and even a fridge that ran on propane. All the comforts of home, DJ said. The water in the tank was piss warm, but water is water when it's hot like that. And brother, let me tell you, the water was like ambrosia, with its healing touch despite the smell, or maybe because of it. While I was relaxing in the water tank, DJ went over to the collapsed barn/shed. That was a cleverly concealed door that hid an old Ford pickup. The truck was mostly blue, but it had one green fender. The Ford had a straight 6 engine, with a 3-on-the-tree transmission and 1 flat tire. There was no glass in the truck. Instead, all of the windows had expanded metal mesh welded all over it, and a light bar from a cop car on the roof. In the cab was a bunch of switches that did stuff like turn off the brake lights and the switch headlights from white to red so as not to ruin your night vision. The truck would have been right at home on the set of Road Warrior. Instead of a license plate, it had a board that was painted with the letters DJ. Once the natural gas system was pressured up enough to fire up the generator, DJ plugged in an old air compressor and a battery charger, and then filled up the truck's gas tank from the gas cans that we brought, and soon had the old truck up and running again. It purred like a kitten, and hardly made much more noise than a cat stalking a bird. Once DJ was satisfied that the truck was still in good working order, he busted out some canned food, peaches and beans. They were warm enough that they didn't need to be heated. DJ asked if I wanted any, and I said that I couldn't eat on an empty stomach, and he laughed and then produced some beer and a bottle of El Diablo Jr.'s home-brewed mezcal. It was in a clear glass bottle and a homemade label with a picture of a smiling red-horned devil that looked a lot like DJ. The liquid in the corked bottle was piss yellow with a worm the size of your thumb in it. I took a big swig of El Diablo Jr.'s genuine Mexican drinking poison. It tasted like the way that gasoline smells, so I chased it with a beer, which settled my stomach enough to eat. There was a storm brewing on the horizon, popping with lots of lightning, but very little rain. I remember the smell of desert rain, but I don't recall any of it hitting the ground. DJ taught me what all the buttons and switches in the truck did. Once he was satisfied that I could handle the truck, he let me drive it to the next goal as the sun set and the moon rose. We wound up in the waning shade of a big rock on a low hill, overlooking a narrow pass that led from Mexico across the border into the U.S. I parked the truck facing downhill, back the way we came, as per DJ's instructions, so we could sit on the tailgate and watch the pass. DJ pointed out an obvious landmark, another big rock, where we were to meet up later. We sat on the tailgate while DJ used binoculars to watch the pass, and we drank a few beers and smoked some weed and talked. I admitted to him that I was still a virgin. You don't get tagged with a handle like mutant by winning beauty pageants. How ugly was I? So ugly that if I had a dog that looked like me, I would shave its butt and make it walk backwards. That's not a nice thing to do to a dog. Why would I do that? 'Cause it looks like me. I've been told by many people that I was, quote, scary ugly. I was born with a cleft palate that went through my lip and into my nose. I was so ugly that they did plastic surgery on me as a toddler, and while that helped, I was still hideous and hair-lipped with just a slight speech impediment. Even my sister-in-law Mary didn't want me around because my face terrified her kids. But DJ promised to remedy my condition when we were done doing this. Whatever this was, we were headed down south to the best little whorehouse in Mexico. While we were waiting, DJ gave me a DJ history lesson. He loved to talk about history for many reasons. One reason was that he liked to use a lot of big $5 words, like history and Calvary. Another reason was that he claimed to have ancestors who were involved. Back in the day, he said there was this nation of semi-nomadic horsemen of the Mongol Khanate called the Tartars. Now the Tartars were a remnant of the fabled nation of Tartaria, and they were the best light cavalry ever, according to DJ anyway. There was this cavalry battle between Genghis Khan's Tartar cavalry and the Shah of Iran. The Tartars started the fight by invading Iran and started wrecking the place to make Shah come from his walled cities to fight. The Shah had a son who thought he was a hot shit cavalryman and was in command of the Shah's cavalry, and he and 50,000 cavalries included both heavy and light cavalry to oppose about 20,000 Tartars, of which about 7,000 were heavy cavalry. The Shah's cavalry was chasing them. The Tartars knew that they were outnumbered, so they ran while the Iranian prince gave chase, hell-bent on proving that he was a better horseman and that the Shah had the fastest horses. For over 100 miles each side drove their mounts at a horse-killing pace, not stopping or even slowing to take a piss. Instead, the Tartars just pissed in their breeches. The Iranian cavalry, however, did. That meant that the Iranians got strung out over miles. While the Tartars were still in a group, the fastest of the Shah's cavalry finally caught up with the Tartars when they turned to fight. The fastest cavalry of the Iranians met the slowest heavy cavalry of the Tartars, and when the Tartars turned to fight, the light was no match for the heavy. As the advantages from having faster and more agile mounts were lost to damn near having their mounts ran to death, the work of killing began, and then the heavy cavalry slaughtered the now outnumbered light cavalry. Too late. The prince realized his mistake, and he was on the fastest horse, now alone, and out in front of his cavalry. He was the first to die, but not the last. The Iranians saw the death of their leader and pissed themselves in fear, as they too realized their predicament. They were spread out and were easy prey for the Tartars. The battle turned into a rout, and the Shah's cavalry was slaughtered to the last man. The prince's rash foolishness blinded the Shah, who lost all of his cavalry that should have been out scouting, but they weren't, because they were dead, and the rest of the Mongols' invading army was able to launch a sneak attack that destroyed Iran. According to DJ, the moral of the story was, it's okay to piss yourself if you have to keep riding, as long as you keep riding. I tried to sleep in the bed of the pickup using one of the spare tires as a pillow, while DJ kept vigil. As I dozed in that half-asleep state, I dreamt that DJ's face changed. His features became less rounded and sharper. His ears lengthened into pointed tips. The teeth seemed to turn into fangs with an elongated snout. But instead of being scary-looking, he looked more like a Lon Chaney werewolf puppy than a howling werewolf. DJ shook me awake. Look alive, mutant. It's on. He told me this as he pulled out his Colt 45 pistol. He held the gun in his left hand by his side and squeezed it so that the slide opened just enough for him to confirm that there was still a round in the chamber, by sight, or maybe by smell. It was a dark, cloudy moonlit night, so not pitch dark, but still pretty dark. Satisfied, DJ switched the pistol back to his right hand and told me to put my motorcycle helmet on and keep it on until he told me that it was okay to take it off, and then to not start the truck until I heard gunfire, and when I did, I was to meet him at the rock landmark that he had pointed out earlier. Then he donned his helmet and headed down into the darkness to head them off at the pass. I didn't have to wait long until I heard what I later learned was a shotgun blast, followed by what sounded like a short burst of an automatic rifle. So I fired up the truck and quietly rolled down the hill to the meetup point by the rock. At the rock, I waited while watching the rearview mirror on the driver's side of the truck for DJ. What I saw in the mirror was DJ quickly approaching the truck. I knew it was him because of the motorcycle helmet that he was wearing, but now he had a large military-style ruck on his back and another one carried under his left arm with a school backpack in his left hand and an old World War I-era Winchester slide-action 12-gauge shotgun that held 5 rounds in the tubular magazine and had an exposed hammer. DJ fired the shotgun blindly, backward over his shoulder. And then I glimpsed a tall, skeletally thin, pale white humanoid in the brief light of the shotgun blast, or maybe the light came from the flash of lightning, or both maybe. Hit or miss, it was enough to make whoever, or maybe whatever it was, trying to catch him, back off. DJ held the shotgun pointed straight up, and suddenly jerked it downward, using the momentum to rack the slide and eject the spent shell. Then DJ swung the shotgun down hard enough to chamber the round and close the slide, making it ready to fire using only one hand. Then somebody shot back with another shotgun, and I heard some of the shotgun pellets bounce off the truck, and I had that I'm about to die thought, and that was all it took to trigger my favorite high of all, sweet baby A. Adrenaline flooded my system. Suddenly, time slowed down. The world went wavy like a shroom trip, and I was in my element. DJ fired again, repeating the process as I hunched down in my seat. I felt DJ drop the bags in the bed of the truck and climb in after them and yelled, "Andale, arriba." I dumped the clutch and almost killed it, but I didn't, and we lit out like a mule with its tail on fire. DJ emptied the shotgun into the darkness. Then he opened the passenger side door while we were still barreling down the hill and climbed into the cab. "You can slow down, mutant," DJ told me as he took off his helmet. "I don't want to break my truck. We don't want to have to walk." So I slowed because I didn't want to break the truck, and I don't like walking because of a breakdown. Regular walking is fine, but walking because you have to sucks. In the red light of the truck, I saw a suspicious new dark stain on DJ's shirt, so I asked, "Are you bleeding?" "See." "Did you get shot?" "See." "Do you need a doctor?" "Nah." "You sure?" "What do you care?" "I don't, other than that if you die, I don't know where I'm going to go from here. I think I'm lost, and I don't want to die of thirst or get stung by a scorpion in a deadly Mexican desert before I get laid." DJ laughed. "Well, how do you want to go?" "I want to be shot by a jealous husband as I jumped the Grand Canyon on my bike." DJ laughed again, and he reassured me, "I'm not going to die. Everyone dies, DJ. Even you will die." He said, "Maybe someday, but not today, and not from getting shot either." He opened up the door and hung out the cab far enough to grab a tackle box labeled DJ's fishing box out of the back. DJ's fishing aid box had a red cross on it, and he pulled out a pair of hemostats, lifted his bloody shirt, and used the hemostats to reach into a bleeding wound and the fat rolled around his gut on the side, and pulled out a single ricochet deformed shotgun pellet. I think it was a number 4 buckshot, or about a .25 caliber, same as the shotgun shells in the backpack. He dropped the pellet in the fishing aid box. DJ took a single round from the spare magazine of his .45 and used his teeth to pull the bullet of the shell. DJ poured the gunpowder from the shell into the wound and used his Zippo to ignite it, cauterizing the wound and stopping the bleeding. Burning human flesh and gunpowder mixed is a smell that you never want to smell and will never forget, but you will wish you could, or might wish you had never smelled it in the first place. See, said DJ, all better. I learned that little trick from a John Wayne Western where they used gunpowder to cauterize an arrow wound, and I had to agree that it was pretty cool, but I wouldn't recommend you try it, unless it's your only option, that is. Taking medical advice from movies is not a good idea, unless you're an outlaw, and or dumb, and or crazy, so I changed the subject by asking, what's in the bags? It was drugs. Lots of drugs. Each of the rucksacks held about 20 kilos of high-grade Mexican Sensimilia, and had been compacted in a trash compactor, and was known as Mexican brickweed. The backpack had 5 sheets of double-dipped blotter LSD acid tabs, with 200 hits per sheet, a kilo or so of what DJ called Mexico's finest homegrown brown heroin, and some number 4 buckshot shells. I remembered the strange white skinny dude, and I asked DJ who or what that was. He said, a Mexican rockpecker. We are feuding with the Mexican mafia, so they hired a bruja to try and stop me from taxing them when they trespass in my pass. I was unsure how I felt about being included in the we that was feuding with the Mexican mafia, and what the hell is a Mexican rockpecker, I asked. There are things who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn from the inside with a shotgun, and they can't stop me from taxing trespassers in my pass. I thought about the bloodstain on DJ's shirt. That was just a lucky ricochet. How did you know what I was thinking? You glanced at my bloody shirt. DJ insisted, even though I was pretty sure I hadn't, but I wasn't sure. I was kind of spacey, and I had been diagnosed with ADHA because my mind has a tendency to wander. Did you shoot them? I asked. Who? The rockpeckers. They shot first. DJ always gave a sucker an even break. Did you kill anyone? Probably. Don't worry about it. They were pushing deadly life-destroying poison on Texas and trespassing on the hallowed sacred ground of DJ Nation. They had it coming. We drove a long circuitous route back to our bikes and got them late in the morning. When we got out of the truck, I noticed another bleeding spot on DJ's butt. It was another buckshot wound and he couldn't get to it to doctor himself. DJ had me use the forceps to dig another shotgun pellet out of his butt cheek and gave it to him without pointing out that this one wasn't deformed, and it didn't look like a ricochet to me. DJ had me pour some more gunpowder on it, this time from a shotgun shell, as DJ was getting low on .45 ammo. I put flame to the gunpowder, and that stopped the bleeding. I insisted on checking him over for any more gunshot wounds, and I noticed plenty of scars, slashes from knives, puckered bullet wound scars, and a strange blue mark that I later learned was from a bank-style die pack exploding while he was carrying money away. DJ said that I was a true friend. If any of his amigos saw the blood on his motorcycle seat, he would never hear the end of it. Pun intended. Would almost likely die of embarrassment, swore me to secrecy, explaining the need-to-know secret clearance. DJ dropped me off at my bike and left me with the shotgun after he showed me how to load it in what he called all the way, even though the shotgun's tubular magazine only held 5 rounds plus 1 in the pipe. He showed me how to get 1 more round in it, in the loading gizmo between the magazine and the chamber. Then DJ stuck his pinky between an external hammer and firing pin and pulled the trigger so that he could safely lower the hammer of the unloaded chamber. Try not to bang the hammer too much. It might go off if you don't hit it right, or maybe if you hit it wrong. DJ also explained how the Winchester would slam fire if you kept the trigger pulled and worked the slide. Then he left me about a quarter pound of weed and the backpack with the rest of the shotgun shells. Still, he took the heroin with him back to DJ Landia, where he stashed the rest of the haul and the truck, but not before he cut a tracking device out of the heroin and put it back in the backpack that he gave to me. I asked him what was up with that, and then he explained how the CIA wanted to know where DJ Landia was, so they set up traps like this one, the one that we had just sprung without getting caught in the snare. That was how he knew that his CIA contact was CIA and not DEA as she claimed, because she and they were duplicitous bitches. He said, never trust the feds, mutant. All cops lie, but the feds are the worst. They always lie. Even before SCOTUS codified the law so that they could legally lie. Remember that when you talk to cops, mutant, they are all liars. After DJ shared that bit of wisdom, he took the heroin and drove the Ford back to the capital of the Republic of DJ Landia. Maybe 2 hours later, he hiked back to where I was, dozing in the shade of a big rock where I had hidden my ride. Thankfully, he had brought some supplies with him, some canned peaches, a canteen of smelly water from the artisan well, the 2 empty 2.5-gallon cans, and a wad of cash, about 10 grand. Some of it has some blue spatter patterns on the bills that reminded me of DJ's strange blue mark. He handed me the money and told me to hold on to it, so I put it into the backpack. It turns out that was some of the cash with a dye pack in it. We ate, smoked some grass, and hit the road. I followed DJ down the hill until we finally hit Blacktop, on the other side of another hidden locked gate and a sign that said, Adios, Naconia del DJ, Benviendos a Mexico, on one side, and the same on the other. And just like that, I was no longer lost. After dark, we came to a closed gas station where we stopped, and then DJ started banging on the door and yelling in Spanish to open up, or else. From the dwelling above the store, someone shouted back in Spanish, Go away, we're closed. He said, I don't care, open up. Who is it? Es DJ. Someone said, Pinche cabron es DJ, and they opened up, and the Mexicans greeted DJ warmly. They let us crash for the night. Tenemos hambre, DJ told them, and the senora said that we could have frijoles and tortillas, or tortillas and frijoles, but I had beans and tortillas, and DJ had the tortillas and beans just to be ornery. The next morning, rested, refueled, resupplied, and now wearing clean Mexican duds, DJ asked me if I remembered the moral of the DJ history lesson from the Tartar cavalry. I didn't like where this was going, as he handed me one of the now full 2.5-gallon gas cans and one of those small fire extinguishers that they make you carry when you're logging on forest service land. This is in case you have a malfunction with your chainsaw and it catches fire. You can put it out before it catches the forest on fire and burns it up, or down, whatever a fire does to a forest. The feds make loggers carry a fire extinguisher in addition to their chainsaws, fuel for the saw, bar oil for the saw, and an axe for fighting off bears and pounding wedges into the cut. This is for when the tree pinches the bar so hard the saw gets stuck. At least one wedge to pound into the cut to free the saw. Tools to fix the saw if you can. Water, chaps, gloves, a hard hat with face protection and ear protection. Lumberjacks have to carry a bunch of stuff, in addition to the government-mandated fire extinguisher, so they made one the same size as a can of spray paint for timber fallers. I had always liked working dangerous jobs, like logger roughneck, fisherman, cowboy, rodeo clown, miner, and forest fighter. I had big dreams of becoming a smoke jumper so I could get paid to jump out of planes. I worked jobs for the danger and adrenaline as much for the money. Being a junkie makes one do stupid shit. My bladder was bigger than a bike's gas tank. Under normal circumstances, I could wait to go until it was time to refuel. But DJ said that we were going to have to refuel underway, and the logger fire extinguisher was just in case. DJ explained that we were going through enemy territory, and that stopping wasn't an option. We headed south through the weird enemy territory. The radio fuzzed in and out, broadcasting weird sounds, sometimes sounding like whale songs or chimes, and once bongos, occasionally getting more substantial or weaker for no apparent reason, and it seemed like the sun didn't move. The scenery didn't want to change until there was this long straight stretch of road that looked like it went on forever over the horizon. The only way I knew that things were changing at all was that my bladder was getting full and my gas tank was almost empty when DJ signaled to me that it was time to refuel. That part went okay. Nothing got spilled or caught fire, praise the Lord. The CB900 was a luxury motorcycle and ours had cruise controls, just a fancy button that kept the throttle locked. DJ set his cruise control and then he about-faced backwards and took a piss while we were cruising down that straightaway, going over 60 miles per hour. Needless to say, I was impressed. Then it was my turn, but I didn't turn around. I just roadside saddled and let it rip. Sure, I got some on me, but not much. It dried quickly. It was still hot AF, but not as hot as it was back in the Republic of DJ. We then had to pour it on, as we were being chased by a wicked Mexican dust maelstrom. No natural storm by the look, sound, smell, and feel of it. I remember DJ's comment about the Bruja working for the Mexican mafia that we were refueling with, and I kept riding in the storm. We rode like the devil himself, and that death was after us. Not long after that, the road curved back southeast towards the Gulf Coast, and things started looking normal again, and we left the dust storm in the dust. Later, DJ told me that we went that way just in case we were being tracked, and that he hoped that the Mexican rockpeckers either wouldn't think anyone would be crazy and or stupid enough to go that way, or they wouldn't be crazy and or stupid enough to follow us through it, or better yet, they would follow us in, but not out. They probably got eaten by the storm, and it was their own damn fault. A DJ trap if there ever was one. Like he knew that if we drove through the zone of silence that there would be a maelstrom capable of stripping flesh from the bone before sunset. We had to make it out before sunset, and I shuddered to think about what would have happened if we didn't. Later, DJ congratulated me in the DJ way. Knew you'd make it, or die. I've seen the face of death more than once, and now I laugh at the memory. Veracruz was where the Marines landed in the Mexican-American War, and marched to the halls of Montezuma that were made famous in the Marine Corps hymn line, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Veracruz was also where the greatest general of all time, Hernando Cortez, landed before he conquered the Aztecs in Mexico with 600 men and 16 horses, and of course, DJ claimed that he had ancestors who were at both events. Why there, one might ask? Well, Veracruz was the hub of a bunch of little towns that all ended in Cruz, or Cross in English. Salina Cruz meant Salt Cross, Vista Cruz, or Cross View, etc. But there was a particular Cruz town that had a modest Plaza del Toros, or Plaza of the Bulls, a bullfighting ring. I told you that there was a bull in this tale, and I will deliver, in this town called Cuerno Cruz, which meant cross horns, or maybe horn cross. But DJ always called it Horny Cross, because the whorehouse that was right next to the Plaza del Toros, so the whorehouse patrons could watch the bullfights from the whorehouse balconies in the shade. In Mexico, shade is rare and valuable as a commodity, thus sombreros. We parked our motorcycles out in front of the cantina under the whorehouse. DJ drew his .45 and squeezed it with his left hand to double check that it was still loaded. He told me to grab the shotgun and backpack, and to put it on my front, 'cause if it was on my back, someone would pickpocket all of our ill-gotten gains. DJ kicked in the Batwing doors, and yes, they really had those like that. This is the part of story that I would have trouble believing. As we walked in, DJ yelled, "Quera, I'm home," in his best Ricky Ricardo imitation. There was a plump senorita behind the bar who squealed in delight, DJ, as she came out from behind the bar to hug him. "I'll tell him you're here." She set out 2 cervezas for us and went to the back. She returned followed by 4 Mexicans armed to the teeth with revolvers and knives, and this small guy, the leader of the Mexicans, was the smallest person I've ever seen before or since. Dwarf or little person, this guy was the smallest. He gave DJ a cross look and said, "Maybe I just shoot you," to which DJ replied, in a typical DJ fashion, "Maybe I just shoot you." I thought, I'm about to get shot in a Mexican whorehouse. What a glorious way to die. And then the adrenaline hit me. Sweet baby A. Time slowed down and the world got wavy. Man, what a rush impending death was. I love adrenaline, but sometimes it impairs my regular imparted judgment, so I do even more stupid stuff than normal. Before I knew what I was going to do, I jumped in as I racked the slide of the shotgun, ejecting the unfired shell from the chamber like a dumbass, and yelled, "If anyone's going to shoot anyone, it's going to be me." And the shotgun went off, blasting a hole in the floor. Everyone looked at me like I had just shot a hole in the saloon floor with a shotgun like a crazy dumbass. "Sorry," I said. "I thought we were shooting. Shotguns smell like sulfur when you shoot them." DJ said, "Relax, mutant. Remember, all you gotta do is drive. Maybe I just shoot you, is how Texicans and the Duende say howdy. Besides, Duende knows that while his muchachos might. DJ stressed the moo because it was a bullfighting ring, and it might cause the muchachos getting him was in no way a surefire guarantee. It was a long shot, at best, according to DJ. I wondered how much he was bluffing, because I knew he was low on ammo. DJ shot me a warning glance. Sometimes I was sure that he knew what I was thinking. A glance that everyone misconstrued as a signal to get ready to start blasting away with the shotgun. The muchachos were very careful to keep their hands away from their weapons. He might get me, but not before I get him, and I will get him, he added confidently. Then turning to the little Mexican, DJ said, "So do you want your huevos and your crevesa, Duende?" Which is a hilarious thing to ask in Mexico, even though in this case the question carried an implied threat. Everyone laughed, deflating Duende, and I swear he got even smaller, like newborn baby size, but full grown with perfectly normal proportioned appendages, just really small. Laughing dispelled the tension, not totally, but at least enough that I was no longer worried that I was going to die a virgin in a Mexican whorehouse. As epic and legendary a demise as that would have been, I was glad to be alive. Duende looked at me and asked DJ, "Who's this crazy dumbass?" DJ introduced me to the owner of the Catina whorehouse in Plaza del Toros, Duende. Duende is a Mexican word that means imp, and imp rhymes with pimp. Duende asked me, "Do you know how I know you are a crazy dumbass?" I said, "Because I just shot a hole in the floor?" "Si, Senor Mutant. And you were riding with DJ." That was the first time I ever heard that, but not the last time, not by a long shot. Then Duende ordered a round of cervezas, no huevos, on the house. Later, DJ guarded the backpack while I got laid by the prettiest senorita in the place, twice. She didn't even make me wear a mask, or even turn off the lights. Hey, at least now I wasn't going to die a virgin. Never got laid again, though. Still too ugly. The next day, Duende invited me to watch a special bullfight with him from the balcony of the whorehouse. It was a special bullfight because DJ was the matador. Down in the bullfighting ring, DJ was wearing a traditional matador outfit that was too small for him, so his gut was hanging out, looking like Poppin' Fresh in a matador suit. The outfit came complete with a rapier and a red cape, except for the hat, which he eschewed in favor of a Disney Mickey Mouse ears hat, and the bull was not even as big as Little Texas Longhorn. It was a Cimarron with wickedly curved needle-sharp horns. They were bred to be quick and agile and to be able to fend off predators and survive in the harsh Mexican scrub, where resources like shade, food, and water were always in short supply, and it didn't disappoint. No, it charged DJ right out of the gate and ran face first into DJ's well-timed knee, so hard that it backed up and sat down on its haunches like a well-trained puppy dog. Then this happened. DJ said, "Ole," and covered the bull's head with the red cape, and went ring ring, grabbed one of the bull's horns, and pulled the needle-sharp point to the mouse ear, on the hat like he was answering a telephone, like that Bugs Bunny cartoon where Bugs fought a bull, and said, "Hola, no, tora esta, aquí, adios." Duende groaned and the crowd laughed, and they cheered for DJ as he killed the bull. DJ bowed and the senorita swooned and threw besos and roses, not real ones, paper ones. Then Duende's muchachos, now dressed as proper caballeros, lassoed the bull and dragged it off with their horses to be butchered and cooked for the fiesta. The Duende raised his hands for silence, then told DJ that they had another toro for him to fight if he wasn't Polo. DJ wasn't, and said to bring on the bull. The second bull wasn't any scrawny little one, no. This one was a huge Spanish fighting bull and was quite a bit bigger than even a big Texas Longhorn that must have cost Duende a small fortune. DJ whipped out the .45 and emptied the magazine so fast that it seemed like the pistol was a full auto into the big bull's head, killing it instantly. Like the scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark, Duende was furious. He had the high hopes that one of the bulls would kill DJ. Not only did that not happen, but Duende was also out of the cost of the expensive animal. The bull did a faceplant as it died, and came to the rest at DJ's feet. At the same time, he calmly ejected the empty magazine from the pistol and slammed a fresh one into the magazine so hard that the slide stop lever disengaged. The slide closed, chambering around, saving DJ a split second while reloading. He twirled the .45 on his finger and holstered the pistol. He did the Mexican hat dance and bowed to the stunned crowd, winked at his favorite señorita, flipped Duende the bird, and attempted to do a backflip off the bull, but was flipping too fast and did a belly flop on the bloody sand. DJ mustered as much dignity as he could under the circumstances, spit some bloody sand out of his mouth, dusted himself off. Told you there was going to be some bull in this story. Duende helped eat the bull, so it wasn't a total loss for him. There was a fiesta where nobody went hungry, and they presented DJ the matador with the bull's tails as was the tradition of the Plaza del Toros. Afterward, Duende took us to a cockfight. DJ told me that Duende planned to trick us into betting on a fixed fight, and to watch for his signal to bet on the scrawnier of the two roosters. I did what DJ told me to do. I bet on the obviously better bird, and won several bets in a row, increasing my bet each time till after they announced the next fight between a monster chicken and a puny little KFC reject. DJ signaled the single by ordering a shot of mezcal instead of his usual crevassa, and I bet it all on the scrawny bird, and it kicked the bigger bird's ass. Later I asked DJ how he knew that the little rooster was going to win, and he told me that the fix was in, and that the bigger bird was drunk. How do you get a chicken drunk, one might wonder? By feeding it tequila or mezcal-soaked raisins. DJ knew all the dirty tricks, and he always gave a sucker an even break. His favorite scripture was, "As you sow, so shall you reap." But they sowed, and DJ was the reaper. The rest of the trip was one long party. We dropped some acid in addition to booze and weed as we visited the Mayan and Aztec pyramids and other ruins. DJ was full of wild tales about the places we visited, stories of battles and adventures, heroes and villains, all of them, of course, being related to DJ. We visited a Mayan shaman and did peyote as part of a sacred ceremony. I barfed and turned into a condor flying over the pyramids of the sun and moon at Teotihuacan, till the winds buffeted my wings and the spirit knew that I was no match for the storm as a bird, so I turned into a jaguar that could jump from hill to mountaintop just as easily as I could jump over an anthill. And then everything I saw and done while tripping on peyote played in reverse, and in an instant I was back in my body. Ever since then, I could play scenes from my memories backwards in my mind. We did shrooms at Chichen Itza. To paraphrase the great traveler Marco Polo, aka Marco Millions' deathbed confession, when the priest told him to recount what everyone thought were lies of his legendary journey, he said, "Truly, I have not told you even 1/1,000,000th of the things I saw and did in Mexico." We sobered up and moved on, having drunk the place dry. DJ said they probably lost our trail, and we were almost out of cash. So it was time. Almost a year. We split up at Juarez. DJ took the shotgun and the backpack, but left the tracing device with me, and then told me to meet him at the river crossing that we used to enter the Republic of DJ and to bring some gas. I crossed the border without incident into the good old US of A at El Paso. It felt good to be back home in Texas again. I followed the instructions exactly, and I got to the river with the gas. DJ was already on the north side of the river when I got there. How he beat me was a mystery, because when we loaded all the weed and shotgun, both bikes were packed to the gills, so he would have had to make at least 2 trips. Back in El Paso, DJ took me to a closed office building with an attached garage, where we parked the Hondas out of sight. DJ claimed this was his embassy. The place was empty except for one desk with a telephone and a metal 4-drawer file cabinet. DJ made a call and dug some paperwork out of the cabinet and filled out an expense report with claims for ammo, mileage, food, entertainment, aka whores, booze, and gas, that he charged to the taxpayer. I dozed in the corner using the backpack with the tracking device and the heroin in it as a pillow. I kept the shotgun close at hand until his CIA contact showed up, and they debated the expenses and dickered a bit over money until an accord was reached. Money was exchanged, and DJ told me to give the lady the backpack now. that now only held the heroin and the tracker. She asked DJ about me. Who's this crazy dumbass? DJ introduced me to CIA, as he called her. DJ called her CIA to irritate her, because she insisted she was DEA, not CIA. You know how I know you're a crazy dumbass, Mr. Mutant? She didn't give me a chance to answer. Because you're riding with this guy. DJ insisted. I know you love me, CIA. Our road went north from there. We followed the Rio Grande to its source, Wolf Creek Pass, way up on the Great Divide. The pass lived up to the song. The road did indeed look like a can of full worms, and was just one of several mountain passes we crossed on our way to Pablo's with our haul of drugs. There was a sheriff's deputy who started to follow us in the county seat of the county where Pablo lived because DJ flipped him off. I found out later from a friend of Pablo's, Radio Man, who was a big scanner and a hamster, a ham radio guy who had been a radio man in the military and worked for a local radio station and recording studio, so he knew what happened. DJ flipped Officer Fiasco the bird. Deputy Fiasco pulled out and caught up to us at a stoplight and called in our plates. DJ's tag was a custom plate that just said DJ with the word diplomatic in smaller letters. The radio came back with a bolo. Just report, do not engage. Fiasco radioed back. They flipped me off. I'm instigating a stop. Then the other end of the radio told him that it was just a Texican aloha. Fiasco radioed. They're rolling heavy. I'm gonna light them up. And then the other end of the radio came back and said, Pinche pendejo, this is Lieutenant Franco. Franco is Pablo's brother, and retired Navy Reserve vet and NAM vet, and now a lieutenant with the Sheriff's Department. If you do anything other than pull over and wait for me to come relieve you of your duty, you're fired, and I will arrest you myself for Grand Theft Auto. Fiasco was not happy about this, and he let the radio know it. Lieutenant Franco said that the former officer did not want the heat that would come from the destruction, devastation, and chaos that would ensue from detaining a diplomat who had immunity. He then said, I know where they're going and I will handle it. Franco told Fiasco. The cop pulled over and let us keep on trucking. He didn't get fired after all, but he did get his ass kicked. When Radio Man told us the story, DJ said, cops lie. That's not how Texicans say aloha. Texicans don't even say aloha. This is the only 3 times in history that any Texican has said aloha. Flipping the bird is how Texicans say, F off, pendejo. Radio Man showed up at Pablo's not long after the pepper pancake incident. He was a regular at Pablo's and was an owner of the radio station, along with being a radio tech and a soundboard operator for Pablo's band. The station monitored the scanner for news and to be able to warn people in case of danger, like mudslides and fires, when it rained and when it didn't. Franco wasn't the only one who knew where DJ was headed. Not that they were trying to be sneaky. I'm sure if DJ didn't want everyone to know that he was at Pablo's, he wouldn't have driven down the main street and flipped off the first cop he saw. A few miles out of town, on a dirt road, we came to Pablo's ranch. He was out baling hay when we rolled up to his house. DJ handed me a pair of binoculars and told me to watch Pablo and tell him what Pablo was doing. The tractor stopped, and Pablo pulled out his own set of binoculars and was looking at us. DJ then mooned him. I saw him laugh and put the binoculars down to free up his hands and take a beer out of a small lunch cooler, chug it, and then twist up a joint, and got back to work as Pablo's dogs came running to defend their ranch from whoever dared invade their domain. The dogs knew DJ. They were excited to see him. These were working dogs, herding dogs, guard dogs, and hunting hounds for running off predators that would kill calves, lambs, a border collie, a blue heeler, 2 beagles, a German shepherd, and a Rottweiler. There were chickens, ducks, geese, a peacock, guinea fowls, goat, sheep, hogs, horses, and even a mule in a paddock in a stable with a round pen, and one of those horse merry-rounds that horse trainers use to exercise horses, and a big roping and hiding pen with a bunch of gates, chutes, and a pen of various sizes. The pens were of stout, high metal panels that could be reconfigured if necessary, a modest single-story ranch, and a hay barn with an attached equipment shed, garages, and a workshop. And there were some fuel tanks for diesel for the tractors and another one that held gas for the stuff that didn't run on diesel. The last building was a bunkhouse. The bunkhouse had a rec room with a pool table, TV, kitchen, a wet bar, 2 ice boxes, one for food and the other for beer, in addition to the 8 metal bunk beds and a bathroom. Outside there was one of those big spools that had at some time in its past held cable or some other commodity that came on big spools that doubled as a table and had several comfortable outdoor chairs and an ashtray with cigarette butts and roaches in it and some empty beer bottles. There was also a vending machine that dispensed cold bottles of beer in addition to pop for a penny in the shade near the spool table. Pablo's dogs raced to DJ and they greeted each other warmly. DJ then introduced me to each dog as they waited impatiently to shake my hand. DJ had an incredible way with animals because DJ didn't feel pain. He was fearless, and somehow animals understood that and loved him for it, and DJ loved animals. It was just that he loved to eat some of them for dinner, while the others he loved, and somehow dogs and horses understood that. And then DJ introduced me to the mule, Hillary, who came running when DJ whistled for her. Hillary was DJ's mule, and she was as good a cutting and roping mount as any. Hillary was named for Sir Ed Hillary, the first person to climb Mount Everest, because she was a sure-footed beast. Pablo told me how many people had offered to buy the mule from DJ for large amounts of money, but DJ was already wealthy, and the mule was a medicine horse, so DJ kept the mule. DJ had trained many cutting and roping horses, and his services as a bronco buster were in great demand. DJ was one of those people who could always get a job, even from people that he had quit many times before. Not that he needed the money, he just liked to work, almost as much as he loved to ride. DJ showed me to my bunk and showed me where to store my stuff. While I was doing that, DJ asked me from the kitchen, "Hey Mutant, do you know how to cook good pancakes?" I said, "Yeah, why?" DJ turned to me with a mouthful of Bisquick and pancake mix and said, "These pancakes taste funny. You have to mix the eggs with cooking oil and milk or water and then cook it in a pan. That's why it's called pancake mix, not pancakes. Then you have to fry it in a pan or it's not really a pancake." DJ dug out a large mixing bowl and poured the whole box in and added the rest of the required ingredients, mixed the mess up with a wooden spoon, and then poured 8 or so pancakes worth of batter into the large round black cast iron pan over the oven burner and cranked it up. He then used his hands to flip the now burnt pancake and turned the burner off and got a QP stick of butter out of the fridge and put it on the burnt outside, raw in the center giant pancake. Sadly, there was no maple syrup, but there was plenty of heavy syrup canned peaches, half-empty jar of chunky peanut butter, and a jar of pickled jalapeno peppers. DJ's pepper pancake was as appetizing as it sounds. He asked me if I wanted to try any, and I declined, so he offered me a beer. Now that I could eat. We went outside and sat at the spool table, not to be confused with the pool table that was inside, and the dogs wound up with my share of the pepper pancake. We drank beer and smoked dope till the sun was setting, and Pablo drove the tractor to the fuel tanks, set the brake, and climbed out. He was wearing a fancy Mexican over-the-shoulder holster and a belt with bullet loops holding spare rounds of ammo. The holster was polished with wax and saddle soap to a high gloss on the inside of the holster as part of the fast draw rig. The holster had an old but well-loved and cared-for .357 Smith & Wesson double-action revolver. Pablo greeted DJ enthusiastically. "DJ, mi hermano." Pablo and DJ hugged briefly, then Pablo turned to look at me and asked DJ, "Who's this crazy dumbass?" DJ introduced me to Pablo, and then Pablo asked me, "You know how I know you're a crazy dumbass? Only a loco pendejo would ride with this guy. You be careful he doesn't get you killed." "It ain't like that, Pablo," DJ drawled in his thickest Texas accent. "Mutant brings me good luck." I must have made a funnier face than usual. I was incredulous. Surely it showed. And don't call me Shirley, because DJ asked, "What?" "The cop busted your nose," I pointed out. "You got shot." And then he said, "That's classified. Need to know, Mutant. Nobody cares where I got shot." "For DJ, that is lucky," Pablo interjected. "And I care. Where did you get shot this time, pendejo?" "Mexico. And it was fatal." I got shot at more hanging with this Vato in 1 month, Pablo told me, indicating to DJ, the Vato, than I got shot for the entire rest of my life, and I was in Nam. Which, me too, except it was only 1 day, and I never been to Nam. There was an old telephone in a box, with a door that was kept closed with a clip that was spring-loaded, like the clip on the end of a dog leash or a lead rope. Pablo had to keep the phone locked up because DJ had taught Pablo's dog, the border collie named Lassie, to use the phone to order pizza, which was fine when there was someone at the ranch who wanted a pizza, but Lassie loved pizza, so she would order one whenever she could to get to the phone. The joke is about the smartest dog being the one that ran Paco Pete's pizza shop that was owned by a cat named Paco's Pete. The OG Paco's Pete was the original Texas Tall Tale. Paco's Pete was born on a covered wagon 100 yards west of the Louisiana border, and he ate like 50 pancakes for breakfast every day. The covered wagon was on its way out west when Paco's Pete crawled out and stayed in Texas and nursed a crazy javelina and lived in an armadillo den with a pack of coyotes. Paco's Pete rode a horse that ate dynamite and farted loud as thunder. This horse was named Twister, and it would use a rattlesnake to lasso a tornado, and then Paco's Pete rode the Twister out to sea on the trail of destruction that they left, was what is now the Palo Verde Canyon. Pablo had to lock up the phone when it wasn't in use. Pablo called someone and told the phone, "DJ's here. I need you to deliver 50 cases of beer." On second thought, he brought his amigo. Better make it 100 cases. Like the song says, 100 cases of beer in the fridge, 100 cases of beer. Take one down and pass it around. 99 cases of beer in the fridge. Beer and groceries were quickly delivered. All the other dogs had goofy names like Dynamut, Speedy Gonzales, and Bat Dog, a blue tick hound, a Rottweiler mixed beagle, and a German shepherd, I think, but I'm no dogologist. Those are just the ones I remember. We were hanging out at the spool table one night when I was introduced to the last member of Pablo's farm and ranch hands. A blood-curdling scream was heard, a primal yell, not one of your typical average barn cats. No, this sound was bigger, and DJ called out to the cat, "Paco's Pete, here Petey Petey Petey," and soon the cat arrived. Paco's Pete the barn cat was an albino bobcat that showed up at the spool table, carrying a dead rattlesnake in its jaw mouth. Pete walked up to Pablo and dropped the snake at Pablo's feet, and Pablo cursed the cat. Apparently, if a bobcat gives you a snake, it's the cat insult equivalent of, "Poor little mamacita is a lousy hunter and would starve if it wasn't for me." In sense, it's the ultimate cat insult that you're a lousy hunter. Then Paco's Pete approached DJ and gave him a good sniff. Once the cat was satisfied that DJ was who he claimed to be, he started doing cat stuff, rubbing and purring as DJ scratched behind its ears, while most of the dogs cowered in fear. Bat Dog and Dynamut looked away like they were thinking about fighting the cat, but were wary. Paco's Pete, the barn bobcat, was the official legal owner of Paco Pete's Pizza Place because rich Californians will go to great lengths to make a joke, and a cat owning a pizza place is funny. It was a money laundering operation too. Some of those Californians called me crazy. "This is a smart cat," DJ bragged. "He knows like 5 words." "What 5 words does he know?" someone challenged. "Here, kitty, 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 kitty." Let me explain something about veteran stories. If you are the offspring of a vet or the spouse of one, you probably think that you have heard all the vet stories. More than likely, you've heard them more than once, but you haven't heard them all, not by a long shot. What you have heard are all the G-rated stories, or even the most PG stories, but what you haven't heard are about the R or the X-rated ones. Those stories are rarely shared, and only then with close friends and other vets. My status as a vet was this. I wanted to be in the Coast Guard like my older stepbrother, one of the people I admire most, and I enlisted right out of high school. But I washed out of boot camp for being too ugly. They won't let you get much beauty sleep in the military, so I was constantly falling asleep in boot camp class until someone jabbed me with a marlin spike, and I failed the written test. Being able to sleep in the most uncomfortable conditions and situations was a good thing according to DJ and Pablo, They claimed that it showed that I had the potential to be a real cowboy someday. If riding with DJ didn't get me killed, apparently cowboys are champion sleepers, and they can even sleep in a saddle. DJ taught me how it was done. A little trick he learned from John Wayne was that you loop your belt around the saddle horn, and that would help keep you on the saddle if you got shot too. When the subject of my veteran status came up, Pablo came to my defense by declaring, "You volunteered. I didn't. I was drafted, and I didn't even want to be in the army." And that was the end of that particular subject. We were sitting around the spool table, drinking beer and smoking weed as per usual, when Pablo shared this story. This is no bull. Once upon a time there was a Texan that went to Alaska to find out if it was bigger than Texas. Now this Texan, impressed with Alaska, wanted to be accepted as a real Alaskan. The Alaskans told the Texan that all he had to do to be a real Alaskan was to chug a fifth of Yukon Jack, get with an Eskimo Huna, and hunt and kill a polar bear. So the Texan chugged the liquor and races off to find the polar bear, just when the Alaskans feared the worst. The Texan returned, and he was all clawed up and barely alive. And he says, "I'm back. Where's the Eskimo that I'm supposed to kill?" We chuckled at that, and then Pablo told us the real punchline, and that Texan was a Texican, wasn't he, DJ? The dumb she-bear wouldn't leave me alone after that, DJ added with a grin. I had to get a restraining order. She couldn't get enough of little DJ Jr. How can it be a DJ Jr. when DJ already stands for Dumbass Jr.? Fine, she couldn't get enough of my Junior DJ Jr. DJ chugged his beer. At least I was drunk. I was a horny teenager, Pablo said, and that's how the subject of bubbles came up. Think of it like this, mutant. What's your favorite thing to eat? Pablo asked me. Bacon double cheeseburgers from Burger King. Now what would you do if you hadn't had a cheeseburger for a long time, or even had anything to eat at all for 14 years, and you found a cheeseburger? That's what it was like with me and Bubbles. I was starving, and I found a cheeseburger. Yeah, DJ teased. A hairy cheeseburger, and Pablo effed it. We were fun-loving outlaws. Pablo's cadre of ne'er-do-wells was loosely patterned like an outlaw motorcycle gang, but instead of patches and tattoos, we had stories and scars. DJ's philosophy was that any serious outlaw should take care not to attract undue and unwanted attention while trying to do outlaw stuff. DJ pointed out that you would live longer that way, notwithstanding him flipping on the cop the bird. Pablo was the equivalent of a chapter president. DJ was the muscle and enforcer, and me, I was just a wannabe affiliate. At the time, I was not in any kind of position to question the validity of anybody's stories, but we also had a serious side, and this expressed itself in many ways, one of which was religion. While we were at Pablo's, we went to Mass regularly and tried to keep the Sabbath day holy. Pablo had a Jewish cowboy friend who would come to his place on Sundays to do things like feed and water the animals that had to be done every day, and Pablo would go to his place on Saturdays to do the same. After Mass, though, we drank and smoked weed while people showed up and paid their respects to Pablo, and by paid their respects, I mean they brought dope. Pablo was a post-dealing musician in California and knew some people that were at least semi-famous. Pablo had lots of amigos, but I was an enigma because I was DJ's amigo. I had the dubious honor of being the only person that DJ ever brought to Pablo's, and that made me an honorary member of the Pinche Loco Pendejo Vatos. You think my tales are tall. I've learned from the cowboys who prided themselves on using the longbow when telling tall tales. This is one small example. I would ask you to pardon the pun, but you won't. This is no bull. Once upon a time, there was this legendary Russian hunter, in Russia, of course. Where else would one hunt Russians? This happened back in the day of the USSR, when a hunter tells you that he shot a critter like a deer, for example. It doesn't always mean that he got to eat it. Too many times the hunter has shot a deer and followed the blood trail until it disappeared, like the wounded animal grew wings. Blood trails and fresh snow ended like something just swooped out of the sky and made off with an entire deer or elk or moose. Now if a hunter tells you that he took a deer, that implicitly implies that he took the horns and ate it. According to this particular cowboy that was telling the story of this legendary Russian hunter, he took a dump that was so big and that stunk so bad that it contaminated a river and chased all the game away from that area for decades, and even after that, any game taken was inedible, like eating a skunk. And that is what really happened at Chernobyl, Minsk, former USSR. There's a joke formula that we will use, 3 scariest things. Let's share a couple of examples. Do you know what the 3 scariest things to a Coloradan are? A New Mexican with a car, a Texan with a gun, and a Californian with a U-Haul. Here is another example for all you D&D nerds. What are the 3 scariest things to a dwarf? A man with a hammer, an elf with a shovel, and a halfling with a grin. You're smart. I think you get the gist. We had conjugated around the spool table, talking about the day's events. Me and one of Pablo's hired guns, a Mohawk Indian called Petros, which was equivalent of the name Rocky. We were doing something stupid with an irrigation ditch that blocked with a pile of debris that was impeding the flow of progress, and we were trying to clear it with the tractor, a small one with a hydraulic bucket loader on the front. I had just hooked a chain around a big log that was trapped under a bunch of other flotsam and jetsam. When Petros went back to pull the log, the bank collapsed because of a muskrat den that the pesky rodents had dug to the bank of the ditch. The tractor rolled, throwing Petros and trapping him underneath the tractor that wound up on its side. Fuel spilled everywhere and caught fire, but the tractor was still running. Petros was trapped, and the beer was going to catch fire. And that was the thought that tripped my adrenaline. Time slowed, and the world got wavy. I jumped on the tractor and used the bucks to move it off of Petros, just enough for him to get free before he got burned too bad. Then I saved the beer and our lunch, but my pants caught fire. They were, however, a complete loss. Petros had long hair, after the Indian style, and it caught fire, and I had to smack him on the side of his face with a fresh but slightly crispy cow pie to put it out. There was no water in the ditch, and the tractor was also a complete loss. It burned right then and there. It caught the wood and stuff on fire. Pablo said he wished he were paying us so he could dock our pay for goofing off. He commented on how much some pendejos will do just to get out of work. DJ would say, "What does a Mexican do when he doesn't want to work?" He would break his shovel. And then we should have just lit the stuff on fire with a Zippo instead of using the tractor. We retired to the spool table, discussing the day's events. Everyone was pointing out this, that, and the other. I was spacing out as usual. We were playing a drinking game, based on the 3 scariest things joke, where we tried to come up with 3 funny things that were scary, and you got to drink, or you had to drink, depending on the reaction that your scariest things got. I did okay. Mexican rockpeckers with guns, duendes, and a mirror. I got to drink. Then Petros said that he had one. A mutant that looks like a confused mutant, a mutant that is thinking, and a mutant that looks serene. Petros was not a big talker, but he had big ears, so when he did talk, we listened. Petros finished his beer, and reached for the cold one that he held up to the blister on his ear before he cracked it open, and took a long pull, adding, "DJ knows what I'm talking about." Yup, DJ agreed. Mutant has 3 faces, confused, thinking, and serene. When you see that face, Mutant's no longer confused and he is done thinking, because he's taken action. Mutant is a real man of action. What happened in Mexico was Mutant almost got us killed when he had a negligent discharge in a whorehouse. DJ said, "He's a berserker. When he goes off, he's like me. He doesn't feel pain." DJ pulled out his Zippo to prove his claim about not feeling pain, but Pablo stopped him. "You don't have to prove it, DJ. We believe you." Pablo is sensitive to the smell of burning human flesh because of some horrible experiences in Nam. When Mutant gets this look of serenity, DJ explained, "Get ready, 'cause all hell's about to break loose, if you don't head it off at the pass." DJ finished his beer and cracked open a fresh one and continued, "It's a surefire guarantee that Mutant won't freeze up when things get dangerous. Even odds that he will do something stupid, though. As long as you are ready for the impending destruction, you will always have the edge." DJ finished with a wink and a smile. They toasted me like I was a conquering hero, and not some doofus who lost his best pair of pants, saving his lunch, and some cold beer. to the mutant of real action. The love and respect of such men is one of the greatest gifts of this life and the next, and I was blessed to have it. Then it was DJ's turn to list the 3 scariest things, and my granny's soup bone. And this is the story as to why. When I was just a little DJ, my dad used to beat me like a drum, not because he was mean or drunk, but because I was a dumbass. But of course, it didn't do any good because I don't feel pain. He pulled out his Zippo to prove it, but Pablo threatened to shoot me if I did. So I got sent to my granny's place to see if she could magic some sense into me, as beating it into me wasn't a viable option. My granny had this old dried up bone that she used to feed many kids by using it to enchant water so that it identified as soup to feed her starving family. In some very hard times, Granny's soup bone actually hurt when she bopped me upside the head like little bunny foo-foo. Granny's soup bone was about as long as a man's arm and was allegedly the finger bone of a giant, and it was the only thing that ever hit me that actually hurt. DJ had to drink. He showed me the bone once on a Mexico raid, and it did look like a giant finger bone, but I'm no boneologist. West Texas was in a drought, but West Texas is always in a drought. DJ was just a kid, maybe 12 or 13. He was out burning the needles off to the prickly pear cacti being the plural of cactus, so the cows could eat them as nothing was growing because Texas was still in a drought, and DJ was burning the prickly pears with a pear burner, just a propane-powered flamethrower that threw an orange flame about 2 to 3 feet, depending on how you set the valve. There were 2 valves. One was the short metal propane tank, where the rubber hose was attached, and the other one at 10 feet or so of hose was another valve, where the contraption changed from hose to about 4 feet of pipe, with a fancy end flared that drew in the air to make the flame bigger and orange. Then things got weird when DJ torched a weird organized pile of desert dry wood, which seemed to form a crude shelter of sorts. DJ's a pyro. He loved fire almost as much as he loved riding, and DJ loved to ride. Anything that moved, he wanted to ride it. The structure caught fire and was burning nicely when the biggest blob of killer bees attacked him. They tried to sting DJ to death, but he fought and won using the propane pear burner. They fought for a while and it was getting dark, but by the time the propane tank ran low, DJ was hungry. He showed up at his granny's place and she used the bone to negate the killer bee's venom that had swollen poor little DJ. They had stung him on the side of his nose and mouth and everything. It was getting hard to breathe, but Granny's soup bone fixed him up. The next day, he was back at it and returned to the scene of the battle to find out if the killer bees were up for round 2. But to his surprise, he found a dead Mexican rockpecker, badly scorched. That was DJ's first encounter with the things that haunt the deserts of Texas, Mexico, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. Tall, pale, with oversized heads, and limbs that grew to an impressive size. And they have many names like Rake, Pale Crawler, Slender Man, Skinwalker, just to name a few. DJ called them Mexican rockpeckers because they were from Mexico, and they were constantly pecking at him, and DJ was the rock, ergo, Mexican rockpeckers. Not everything we talked about was funny. We had a serious side. With DJ it was history. He loved to point out inconsistencies like this. Julius Caesar supposedly implemented the Julian calendar that had a month named for him before he was assassinated. Then Augustus Caesar became emperor and had a month of August named after him. So how is it the Julian calendar? History doesn't add up if you start poking at it. You can't trust the clams that wrote history, because just like the cops, they lie. Sometimes we'd be drinking around a fire at night, and we would play a game called Rocky Mountain Roulette, when someone, usually DJ, would throw a handful of live rounds into the fire. Usually they were just 22s, but sometimes 45s, and everyone would scatter like a bunch of scared bunnies while the ammo cooked off. Everyone, that is, but DJ and Pablo. DJ explained that there was not any serious danger, because when a round cooked over a fire, the bullet didn't work like it did in the chamber of a gun. When a round was fired from a gun, the gun has more mass, making the lead slug go out the barrel. But if a round cooked off in a fire, the lead slug had more mass, than the brass, so when it went off, the bullet didn't move, but the brass casing did, and all of the energy dissipated, more or less, safely. DJ would light the sky on fire just to watch it burn. When we had a bonfire to burn trash, sometimes there was a pressurized spray can that would blow up spectacularly in the fire, sending flaming garbage flying. Good times. For me, being a cowboy was kind of fun, excluding horses. It was hard, dangerous work, don't kid yourself. In ways, it was like being in the military, hours of boring hard work punctuated by moments of terror, but I loved it, so bring on the adrenaline. The first thing we did was help Pablo finish haying. We hooked up Pablo's antique Johnny Popper tractor to the hay trailer and hauled the bales to the barn. When you get to the next bale, you have to kick it over just in case of rattlesnakes. They've been known to hide under bales when it's hot, and brother, it was hot AF. Even though we were at elevation and fall was in full swing, not as hot as DJ Landia though. Even scarier, a rattler could get baled along with the hay and get trapped in the hay in a way that it couldn't warn you with its alarming buzz, yet it would still be able to bite. The chance of a very painful death is the spice of life for an adrenaline junkie. DJ and I put up 1,000 bales of hay. The hay trailer held 100 bales, and the dogs drove the tractor, while DJ stacked and I bucked the bales from the ground, a job that got harder as the haystack got taller. DJ stacked about 25 bales to a layer. Once we got 4 levels, DJ took over driving the tractor, back and forth to the hay barn. The rows between the bales of hay were fairly straight, and the tractor was simple to operate. It had a hand throttle that only moved if you pushed it one way, to speed up, and pull down the other way to slow down. Once the tractor was in low gear and the throttle was set, all the dogs had to do was keep it between the rows. They could turn the steering wheel by pulling one of the 2 knotted ropes that were tied on the opposite sides of the steering wheel. When it was time to turn around, one of us humans would take over and get the tractor lined up with the next row. Steering the tractor was another trick taught by DJ. The dogs chased mice and barked warnings at the bales with snakes so no one got bit. DJ said to kick the bales over anyway, just in case. Each trip got longer as we hailed hay from the farthest fields, and each trip took about an hour, depending on how far away the field was. Pablo paid us US 20 cents a bale, split 3 ways. The dogs got a penny a bale. DJ and I split the rest. Pablo was a generous person, except when it came to paying for work. Then, he was tight as a drum, because according to him, all we did was drink beer and smoke dope. Just a little note on cowboy work. It's hard work, but it lacks the frantic pace of, say, a mine or an oil field. That's not to say there weren't moments. Oxes in the mire, or calves getting attacked by wolves that required immediate action, and roundups that were straight-up excitement. Branding and inoculating calves was a major part of being a cowboy, and it was worked as quickly as we could, because there was a last calf in the mess somewhere. But the cowboy work could never get done, because there was always something more important that needed doing. Building and repairing the fence was a constant job that always needed doing. Fences always break, because cowboys jerry-rig it. Good enough for now is the cowboy's philosophy on fence repair. I've worked some mines in my day. Gold, uranium, and coal. Coal mining is the scariest. The way you mine coal is you cut tunnels at regular intervals, north and south and east to west, leaving what are called pillars. You cut and move the coal down to the far end of the seam of the coal. That was called advanced mining, and it was bad enough with the usual dangers like the ceiling dropping a rock on your head. But then we did what is called retreat mining. As miners cut all of the coal pillars out of the rock behind you in caves, we set up posts right behind the mining machine. When those posts started to bend, a collapse is imminent, and everyone stops what they're doing to watch. When the overhead collapses, there's a powerful gust of wind that scares everyone regardless of how many times you spent in the mines or how many times you have seen it. It gave me a rush every time. I knew this old uranium miner named Jim, and he was batshit crazy, short and stocky. He spent so much time underground that his head lay permanently on one shoulder at an impossible angle. He looked so weird that he even creeped me out. So thank you to Mutant Buzzard for sending in that crazy collection of stories. I don't even know what to call it. But yeah, it was crazy. So if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, as usual, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to donate to the channel, there's links. There's links in the description. There's memberships and all that stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about. And there's the new hype feature that I mentioned before. If you were to hype one of my videos, I would be very grateful. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you'll tune in for the next one on Sunday. So, thank you for pulling up a stump, and thank you for watching. Have a good weekend, and happy Halloween.